we are back at it, and we're going to get into some martial powers development today. It's my lunch stream. Give me a moment here to make sure my signal's kicking. Let's see. Sure am. Coolio. So, if you follow me on Twitter... Coolio. So, hey, you're supposed to be quiet. If you follow me on Twitter... There we go. If you follow me on Twitter, I just posted on Twitter, then I'm live. So, tag along. If you aren't following me on Twitter, that's cool. You can. But above and beyond that, like and subscribe, share. We're going to be getting into the meat of this. If you're new, we develop documents, new mechanics for Dungeons and Dragons, and then we do the cartography and the artwork and the page layouts and all the stuff that goes into building a 5e. You know, I work in 5e right now until 6e drops. So all the specifics about building a 5e document, the layouts, all the production stuff, and we do the thing. So it's a long, slow format. It's not punchy, quick, and quirky. So YouTube hates it. So you can help support the dream and like and subscribe and share. We're just trying to make something happen here for folks. So if you check the link down below, see the Patreon, you'll see the playtest document that we'll be working with today. There's also a link to DMsGuild. The DMsGuild's got this. It's a link to the Color Mana Spell Point variant rules that I've created. These are 35% off on Dungeon Masters Guild, but more importantly, you can read them all cover to cover. It's like probably 150 pages. So a lot of content there for you guys to look at, just mostly to get an idea of how I work, what my stuff looks like, the kind of artwork I put into these things, and the kind of mechanical thoughts that go into that stuff. So without further ado, if you check out the like I said, if you check out the Patreon link down below, you don't have to be a patron, but it will take you to the About page, which will show you the playtest content that we are currently looking at right here, right now. Bam, there you go. So this is the playtest content. It's the document's fully functioning as is. My home team, we're level 17. We're using this stuff with an Arcane Trickster, a Horizon Walker Ranger, and our Druid is using some of the exploits and reactions as well, just to be more support for the team. So, hey, Hornet Echo, how you doing, man? Literally just woke up from a sudden nap. Just in time for a stream. Right on, dude. Okay, so first off, it's been a couple weeks since I've been at this project. So if you're new, hey, what we're doing is we're building a unified mechanics for barbarians, fighters, monks, paladins, rangers, and rogues to have access to a type of magic that isn't spellcasting. It's not psionics, it's martial powers. If you're familiar with 4E, it's the idea of using grit or even magic, whatever your narrative is that you want to go with it. We provide a unified table of different effects that you can use that have different costs, and the amount of mana that you have to spend on those things while you do them are listed here. Hey Goblin, good to see you, man. I don't think I've seen you around much. So we're looking at this is our 37th episode. If you check the playlist on my stream for martial powers, there is a shit ton of history of me walking from the front page all the way back to the last page, and basically all the mechanical development that went into it. But this is where we're at now. So we're just keeping moving down the road, and hoping that we're going to have all these mechanics resolved by the end of the year. And then we can just build some fun examples of different characters, creatures, magic items that use martial powers, stitch all that stuff up, and then hit it off to Ken Carcass, our editor. Hoping he'll be able to turn that around for us not too far after the holidays. And then we can have this follow up when we finish Spelljammer, and when we finish up Eberron, we can dive in to start doing all the artwork and all the page prep and all the layouts and dropping it all into the PDFs and publishing this thing. I'm gonna say May. I don't brew stuff fast. Slow makes smooth, smooth makes fast. We'll see. We'll see. Okay, so off the tap, something that I needed to resolve was simplifying attack maneuvers. The 18th. So this is okay. So if you're a barbarian, if you're a fighter, or if you're a rogue, martial powers is an archetype that you can choose, kind of like Eldritch Knights or Arcane Tricksters. Or if you're going to go with a monk, a paladin, or a ranger, it is an alternate spell list. It's about 175 powers in total that you can use instead of the 50-odd, 70-odd spells that, say, paladins or rangers get access to. And it converts monks into a half-caster so that it has a scaling 1 through 5 progression from level 1 to 17 along with the paladin and the ranger, so that it can also use all its ki on these powers as like a super trumped up eldritch way of the 4 elements. Like, pick your 20 some odd powers over the course of your life, and you can dump ki into that as you wish. And obviously all the subclasses that paladin, ranger, and monk have, you still get a subclass, but some of them are modified by powers depending on what they offer you. So, and again, we went through all of that class by class, archetype by archetype, and I think it was like around episode 20, I want to say. So go ahead and check all that out if you really want to dive into it. So since the fighter has an archetype, which is the martial champion, we have the progression from level 3 to 18. We have a caveat here that you can pick it up at level 1 if you commit to it. What we're focusing on right now, the change that we made for this session, is the attack maneuvers. So for those that aren't indoctrinated already, you've got strikes, which are like paladin smites. That when you make an attack, you hit, then you blow mana, and you deal extra damage, and or get like an added effect, like trip somebody or banish them or turn them inside out or whatever. And but a maneuver is a lot more flexible. It's more like, I'd say it's the most spell-like thing that you could do. It's effects that you can trigger, like for example, I could do a gravity well, and so everybody within 15 feet of me gets pulled 5 feet closer to me. That might cost me 2 mana to do that. That's a maneuver. And normally maneuvers can either be you can either channel a maneuver by either using a bonus action or a regular action. You can do them both in the same turn. So you could do a gravity well twice. 15 feet pulls people, 5 feet pulls 5 feet. You've just ended your turn, but now you've got a cluster of people within 5 feet of you, for example. So if you have Sentinel and you have gravity well, you can pull people to you, and whoever tries to walk away from you first, smite. So, and then you can use your strike damage, so you can stack up a bunch of effects. Well, what we did with attack maneuvers, it used to be a lot more complicated. We just dumbed it down, super simple. At 18th level, when you take the attack action, you can forgo any number of attacks to channel maneuvers instead. So a 20th level fighter could use a bonus action plus 4 attacks to channel 5 maneuvers in one round, instead of making 4 attacks and then having a bonus action. So it's just very simple, easy to understand, and really just adds a crap load of value to staying with fighter all the way to the end. So by the time you get to 20th level, that's a lot of economy you have accessible to you. So I'm going to catch up on notes here real quick. Actually, this is my first stream. Excellent, Goblin. Welcome to the mix. And I was looking at the monk stuff in the doc yesterday, and I was able to think of a bunch of cool ideas for builds. I am going to, once this publishes, one of my other side projects is to then convert all of the existing monk subclasses into the half-casting format that I have with the Elemental Keybook. So like the Sun Soul and the Shadow Monk. Like, I've already done the Sun Soul and the Shadow Monk on a different stream, building them into half-casting classes. That just folds into this. So like the Kensei is going to be I'm the most interested in doing, because of how like heavy armored it is and using large sized weapons. That's going to be fun, and so will Drunken Master be. But I'm going to break all those things down and have them all curve into, like, expand out into their own half-casting classes to use these martial powers with. But that's what we're doing with, that was the only change that we had so far with the fighter. And let's see. Goblin Lord, that sounds like a good way to for someone to never have to waste a bonus action. Absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. And there's a shitload of things that you can do other than, well, I mean, it's either exploits or maneuvers that are giving you bonus action things to do. And this is stuff that full casters don't get. It's just half casters and martial classes. So like if and with caveat like warlocks can get this stuff, but it costs them an invocation to earn it, and they can only earn them at the same progression as a half caster can. So even though a warlock can cast spells of 5th level at 9th level as a warlock, you won't be able to get access through an invocation to say a 4th rank martial power until you were a 13th level warlock. So again, if you wanted to like play a hardcore hex like a hexadin, you could actually blend your paladin and your warlock features in through martial powers, so they're all working together using bonus actions and multiple smites and maneuvers to complement whatever kind of a warlock it is that you want to build. So you don't actually have to go hexadin if you don't want to. It's just super cool if you do. And then you have to give up the normal hexadin damage, and you have to use our martial power system instead, because this curves a little more gently over time. Okay, so let's see. Let's kick on down here. I better set a timer, because I only have so much time today. And I'll geek out about this crap forever when someone new shows up, so I'll get off course too quickly. So I'm going to take a quick sip here. See if I can ramp myself up even further. Yeah. Right, so, and again, Artificer variants. Oh, yeah, that's right. Artificers can use this as well, but they have to use infusions. They can't learn them like a Paladin or Ranger are, but if you devote an infusion, you can create a device that channels a martial power. So like you can create a gemstone, chunk, you can plug it into your axe, and now your axe can deal like banishing damage or whatever. Fun stuff like that. Multi-classing and channeling, it all curves together. So a Paladin, Ranger, Fighter, Rogue of 5/5/5/5 is treated as a 20th level channeler. So you'd still have access to all 5 ranks of power. You'd still be throwing a d10 on your power die. You'd still have 20 powers over the course of it. It's just now you can freely multi-class between half-casters and martial classes and never lose any of your of the power that you're channeling. So it's just how are you going to express it between the different classes? It's a very 3E approach to it. It's almost like the power system is like a pseudo prestige system that straddles those different classes, all using the half-casting progression system. So, martial powers. Here's a crap ton of powers. I mean, again, if you check down the link down below in the Patreon, go through the Patreon, you don't have to buy it. You can go into the About, and it says, check out our playtest content here now, and this is what leads you to here. So you can jump into this document. I'm currently on page 21, so you can play along. More mystical variant. Yes, it is. Yeah, Tome of Battle was the original inspiration, but there's not nearly as much granularity in martial in 3. 5e is less granular than 3e, so a shitload of the things that were in 3e aren't relevant to 5e. Like 15 of maneuvers can just boil down to advantage on attack roll. You know, like there's not a lot of variety there. But we were able to, for instance, convert all the Blood Hunter powers, all the mutagens, all the mutants, all the Ghost Hunter stuff, all that stuff. We were able to convert it away from being a hit point pool and directly just convert it into a mana pool. So if you wanted to be a Blood Hunter, you could be a Ranger Blood Hunter, which is super fucking cool. Or I think a Paladin Blood Hunter is amazingly cool, but it's just how you choose to purchase the martial powers that you're going to invest into your subclasses. Like you could go, Horizon Walker and dip into the Ghost Hunter. Yeah, you can dip into that stuff and build a more unique character, not by the subclasses you're taking, but by the powers that you're purchasing to manifest your to channel your mana through. So I think the thing I wish was able to come back was stances, because those were so cool in my opinion. Cool to see Blood Hunter getting some conversion here too. Okay, so just to geek out for a touch, instead of stances, we have sustained powers. And sustained powers are these are things that they're like concentration. They're not, almost everything here is an instant effect. I do it, I blow the mana, it's over. A strike, a maneuver, an exploit, like boosting my boosting my stealth check and stuff like that. Those are a reaction. Those are almost all instant effects, but sustained powers are concentration effects. So, like for example, let's close quarter combat. Here's one of the stances or the sustained powers that we have. Close quarter combat. While this power is sustained, all melee attacks you make gain the grappling strike power as detailed above, and you gain 1 power die to the result of the strike effect. So going up to grappling strike, this would normally cost you like a smite. It would cost you 1 mana every time you hit somebody. You could then, if you're using a melee attack, you could spend 1 mana to trigger grappling strike as part of your damage. It would deal, like say at 9th level, you're doing D8 damage as a power die. So you spend 1 mana, adding 1 power die to mana burned. You wouldn't do damage here, but instead, this is how this one reads. It's unique. So when you succeed, I'm going to zoom in a bit for you guys. I'm not lying. This is for me. Grappling says, when you succeed with a melee attack using this strike power, instead of adding power dice to your damage roll, you can grapple a creature up to 2 sizes larger than you with the weapon, adding 1 power die per mana burned to your grappling ability check. The grapple ends when you choose to or attack another target with the grappling weapon, or you are incapacitated. Capacitated. There we go. Yeah, so I used to do this all the time in training. You'd hit somebody with a sword, you'd bend it around, you'd hook their arm, and now you have their arm hooked up like this, and you've got your blade going from their elbow poking out like this across their tricep into their armpit. You're holding them pinned with their arm with your sword. So while it's pinned, you can be slicing into their muscle, and if you want to free up the weapon, you just free up the weapon and you just toss them aside. That's very, very basic combat in Japan, like super old Japan. So it always pissed me off that you couldn't use grappling weapons like that. But here we are. So, but if you're maintaining the close combat sustained power, and that's the kind of warrior you want to be, where'd you go? Close quarter combat. So yeah, while you sustain this, it costs 2 mana, which means you won't have access to it till 5th. It's 2, so it's gonna eat up all of your concentration to do it. You can't. It's your max channeling is 2, so this is the max you can do at 5th level. So while you're sustaining this or maintaining concentration, all of your melee attacks gain the grappling strike. And it automatically has 1 power dice. So you're automatically adding 1 die roll to all your grappling checks. And okay, so that's sustained. And sustained sucks for martials because you're always taking hits. You can lock it instead. So you don't have to maintain concentration anymore, but it reduces your maximum channeling rank by the amount locked. So if you're a 5th level character that only has access to 2nd rank powers and you lock 2 ranks, you're now effectively a 0 rank. You can't use any of your mana until you unlock that ability. So the advantage is you can't lose concentration on it, but it limits what you can do. So we want to give you a kicker for locking it in to incentivize you for locking the power. And to do that, so on locking, which is either when you trigger the effect or any time when you want to use a bonus action, you can lock it. You can grapple as though you are 1 size larger, and you can roll with advantage. So that's 2 mana. You don't have to maintain concentration, but you can't use any other martial powers at all other than, obviously, the grappling strike that you gained for locking this close quarter combat in the first place. And then you can just dismiss it as you will, and then it burns, and then your slots open back up. If you're sustaining it, just like any other spell, if I'm sustaining the 2 mana, I have to worry about maintaining concentration, but I can still fire off reactions, maneuvers, strikes, exploits. If I think I can maintain concentration on this, then go for it. If it's something like at first level, if you get a cool sustained power, like power armor, for instance, at first level, you may decide that you want to lock it. Like if you're a rogue, for instance, this might be a good idea. Your armor class is 11 plus your dex modifier plus your proficiency bonus. And if you lock it, you can create a defensive field of power that can be used as a shield that you are proficient with, granting an additional +2 to your armor class. The shield doesn't need to be held to use it, and it doesn't stack with any shield you're holding. So an 18 armor class rogue can go, 4, 15, 16, 17. And then if you lock it, it can go up to 19. So you can have your rogue running around with a 19 armor class at first level if he's locking his mana to specifically maintain power armor. And it doesn't bulk him because everything's free. It's just free energy force. So that's a really good reason why you'd want to take the power skirmisher. So, but then you got power shield. Anyway, it goes on and on and on. Like at first level, when you don't have a lot, you can't afford to burn a lot of mana from losing concentration. You just lock it. You just keep it till the end of your long rest. I think the hook sword with that kind of strike. Yes. Okay, great. So here's the new innovation that we're playing with today. Now that I got through all the preambles and thanks for being interested. Okay, so we've already discussed that you can purchase feats. You only have, here, I'm going to duplicate this real quick so we can look at 2 things at once. Number of powers known, ... And so the powers known is going to equal the best case scenario for a paladin. It's way better than what a fighter like Eldritch Knight would get. It's better than what an Arcane Trickster would get. It's better than what a Ranger would get. But it's still on par with what a Paladin would get. So cheers to that. But so if you wanted to, you could instead, like at first level, I pat myself on the back because a week after I did this, they released the expert UO showing that Rangers would start having spellcasting at first level. So proud of myself for that one. It's documented. You can look at the timestamp on the playlist a couple months back at this point. Anyway, patting myself on the back for knowing where Wizards is trying to go with the world. So that means that we can have powers at first level, and that's going to curve into 1/6 A-OK. And so we know we start off with 2 powers, but you only have a hybrid caster, which is what we call a paladin, ranger, and a monk. Or not a monk, but a paladin and a ranger are hybrid casters. So when you have 2 mana at first level, and you know 2 powers, you don't have to do anything with that mana at all if you don't want to, because you could instead just purchase feats. So throw away your mana and grab up some extra feats. Here's the feats that we currently have. I mean, obviously this is going to all recalibrate when 1/6 comes out, but the idea is the same. That low, like low bonus, easy, fun stuff is you can gain at first level as first rank powers. They cost 1 each. And then second rank is 5th level. So you can start gaining these things at 5th level and higher. All the good shit that's out there. But we'll see how this all switches out once 6E comes in. But for now, this still works. So this was a lot of fun to develop this. The next thing that we're playing with today, this is the key that we're at, is now purchasing damage types. So going back to the strike list. Strikes. Blinding strike. Your weapon can deal radiant damage and add 1 power die per mana burned. In addition, the creature is blinded. The creature can attempt to end the effect at the beginning of each of its turns by succeeding at a Constitution saving throw. There's no concentration on this. There's no end duration, and it automatically triggers when it hits. Some things require a saving throw first to trigger, but low impact stuff like blindness. I mean, blindness is not low impact in the least bit. But there's a wiggle between a bunch of stuff. But a number of these things is if I hit you and I blow the mana, you are blind. Period. As though you had failed your saving throw. But you immediately start getting saving throws at the start of your turn. So I get 1 over on you for now. I deal some extra damage. you could shake it off immediately at the beginning of your turn. But I still got my damage in, and if I time it right with the rest of my team, and I do, and I hit you and you're blinded, then my team can exploit the fact that you're blind for now. So it's got really good add value because mana, you burn through mana fast. So it's nice to be able to have some just little quirks there. But the point is that these things like radiant damage is pre-built into Blinding Strike and Psionic Strike. It deals force or psychic damage and adds 1 power die of damage per mana burn. So it has these, a lot of them have these pre-built damage types into what it is. And of course you can stack these things. Like if I was 17th level, I could throw Psionic Strike, Blinding Strike, Revealing Strike, Shocking Strike, and Thundering Strike, all of them together. I can stack all that stuff up, throw 5 dice to do 5d10 extra damage on top of my hit, and you can get knocked prone, and you lose your reactions, and if you're invisible I can see you, and you're blind. There you go. And I can choose any of these damage types inside of there. But so a lot of these powers and maneuvers have predefined damage that goes into them, but you can purchase damage types. So here's the way that we're breaking this down is you got primary damages and you have advanced damages. Hold on, I'm gonna catch up on notes. Defeats them. Now this feels really good if you want to minimize your magical stuff as a hybrid user. Yes, absolutely. It's also like a warlock, for instance, can spend invocations to get feats like this. If you want to go with a more martial warlock, you can spend invocations to pick up useful feats and then free up your actual warlock feats that you gain for the more spellcasting side of things if you need. So there's a lot of leverage you can build into these sort of things. Obviously, Artificer can take advantage of that by strapping on a hat of a chef or whatever. Okay, so the damage types. You can purchase a damage type. Each damage type costs 1 known power. So again, looking up here, you could, if like you don't want to burn any of your mana, and you just want to, you only know 2 powers at first level. You end up having 15. So you could instead just be able to stack up at will damage types. Like I'm going to use Blinding Strike, but I'm going to, when I spend my mana, I can then instead choose, if I purchased Acid, I could deal acid damage, and by 5th level I can purchase any of these as well. So how does this work with magic paradigms? This is expensive. Like I said, you only have 15 powers that you know over the course of your character, and there's 10 damage types. You probably want to pick up, like most people would probably want to pick up, say, force or psychic damage. Those are pretty low-hanging fruit because of how few things are immune to them. But at first level, things like lightning is lightning's pretty damn good damage. So that's worth grabbing that's worth purchasing at first level. And by the time you get to 5th level, you can swap it out. So you have the option to be able to swap in and out of these things. But again, it's expensive to gain them, and these things only work when you are spending mana. So you can't just at first level, if all the powers you learn is just damage types, you're never going to use them because you aren't using your mana to deal any damage. You could like purchase like lightning and then say like Blinding Strike. You could deal lightning damage and you blind your opponent, and you've got 2 mana, and that's it for the day. It's kind of like casting Shocking Grasp with your sword. So, but again, it's a smite effect. So it's when you hit, that's when it spontaneously or instantly, as an instant effect, you decide, well, I hit you, so I'm going to boost the damage by using my lightning blinding attack. You see what I'm trying to say there? So that's expensive. Now we are talking about magic paradigms today. So I'm going to go here and jump down here to, let's get past power gear, 5-color mana system, right? The 4 elemental system. These are the different colors that the different guilds of Ravnica have. And of course, if you're using the 4 elemental system, there's 4 elements. So I'm just gonna keep picking at this and just make this whole thing messy until we figure it out. So there's 4 elements. There's air. Wait, I think I actually have this written someplace already. Let's see if I can find it. Oops. Magic paradigms. Elements. 5. Oh, yeah. Here's the thing. Okay, so if you go with air, your primary element is lightning. So you can see here this corresponds. I'm going to pull this out. This corresponds, right? Primary elements is acid, cold, fire, lightning, and poison. These are like weaker in comparison to force, necrotic, psychics, radiant, and thunder damage, right? That is according to this article that I found online here. Mad props to whoever this dude is, who breaks down the most effective damage types based on how few creatures are immune or resistant to them. And I'm not sure how old this is, but it can't change that very much. So that pans out to the, like, aside other than, well, sorry, wrong page here. Lightning is by far the best of the primary damage types, but the advanced damage types, like all these advanced damage types are just wreckers. There's like maybe a dozen or so things that have any kind of resistance to any of these things, if anything at all. So these are really good damage types to take, which is why they're a higher level to gain. And considering that most games go from level 1 to 7, this is a really good place to have this available. Me as a DM who runs 1 to 20 campaigns, instinctively I want to put this at 9th level, but that means that most campaigns wouldn't actually ever see this stuff manifest. So I kept it lower at 5th level just so that it could be something for people to aspire towards. So you activate your damage when you use a maneuver. Yes, whenever. Well, it depends on what the triggering condition is. Like, sorry, we'll just keep doing a little quick tangent because the shit's fun. Get rid of that here. Let's go up to, like, let's look at exploits real quick, for example, because each of the 5 powers are different. Like the sustained or concentration things that you can lock in. The strikes are you spend the mana after you hit somebody, just like Paladin Smites, and this replaces the Paladin Smite. And if you look at the rules for Paladin, the Paladin actually ends up pretty much equal. The die is different, but he ends up in for most of their career with the same amount of damage that you would expect them to already be doing. So there's very little change there. We just calculated it differently to curve into this channel system. The reactions are when you trigger reaction, like if this guy's trying to move out of my space, I then spend mana, use my reaction, and then I do the thing to him. Like let's look at it real quick here. Just so you can catch up, and then we'll get back into it. Reactions, deflection. This costs 1 mana. As a reaction, when you or an adjacent ally are hit by an attack roll from a source you can see, the attack is re-rolled, taking the new result, and this result can't score a crit. So it's it's a 1 point mana. Basically, a lot of the stuff I stole from Battlemaster and Arcane Archer, Gunsmith, Rune Warrior, all the subclasses that already exist inside of 5e. I trawled through to grab the things that I liked, got rid of the things that were redundant, and then went back into 4e, 3e, and looked for other things that I thought were fun. Grabbed up the Blood Hunter as well, obviously, and then retooled all of these things to have mana costs that basically curve in when you would normally get them with your archetype. So it's a reaction. So like double take. As a reaction, when you roll an ability check using the Insight, Perception, or Survival skill, but before you know if the check has succeeded, you can re-roll, keeping the better result. You do a double take. Wait, what? There you go. It's kind of fun. Consider is a magic card. As a reaction, when you roll an ability check using the History, Investigation, or Search skills, but before you know the result of the check has succeeded, you can re-roll, keeping the better result. So you're looking at something, or someone provides you a piece of information, you just literally consider it for a moment, and then you get to re-roll. so I was like, I don't like that result, I'm going to reconsider that. So that's kind of the flavor that goes on behind some of these reactions. But then you got, other stuff like what's a higher rank one? Indestructible. You don't get this until 13th level or above. As a reaction to taking damage from any source, you instead become immune to all damage until the beginning of your next turn. But you can't, like, if you have anything locked, you can't use it because you're not gonna have, you have to balance, like, in my sustaining stuff, how much mana do I actually have, how worth this. My Arcane Trickster has an indestructible, and he uses it at least once a session, but he only has at 17th level, he only has 17 mana per day, so it's expensive for him to use it. But sometimes it's like, this is totally worth it. It lets him stick his face in things that you really shouldn't be doing. He gets a little cocky over it. His issue is sticking around for too long. But yeah, so I'm going to use my power named Wayne Augustine second there. Exactly. But yeah, that's kind of the idea. Now looking at, we looked at strikes. That's those are reactions. Exploits I think are super cool. Let's look at those real quick. What's a good one? Master Burglar. When you make an ability check that uses the Acrobat, Stealth, or Thieves tools, roll 1 power die per mana channeled, adding the highest result. So, say at like my rogue is 17th level, right? He's still on a D8. He won't have a D. Yeah, he just got D10s. 17th level, you get a D10. So my rogue is now, his power die is now a D10. When he makes a stealth check, if he wanted to throw 5 mana at it, he would roll 5d10 on top of whatever his result would normally be from his ability check, his ability score, his expertise, obviously, and the die roll. Then he rolls 5d10, but he only takes the best of the die rolls. So you can't ever outpace a bard's bardic inspiration, but you can dump a shitload of mana into it to make sure that you're probably going to get a relatively good die roll instead of I rolled a 1, you know? So that's the give and take of it. Like for a ranger, this shit is sick. If you're doing stealth, investigation, survival stuff, you could easily just kit out and just dump exploits into your skill checks and just consistently hit high numbers for whatever tier it is, or whatever tier of gameplay you guys are at. But that is, I'm going to make this skill check, I'm going to spend mana when I make the die roll. It's an instant effect that when you're rolling the die or you're declaring the action, that's when the thing happens. So, does that make sense? Anyway, so basically it's more like you can activate the damage type if it's an attack that you trigger using the relevant condition. Right. So like it would be like hardly any of these reactions actually deal damage. They create effects that allow you to deal damage, like Flicker Pounce. You can teleport up to this is a 3rd rank power, so you get it at 9th level. You can teleport up to 30 feet to a space within 5 feet of a creature that you can see and make a weapon attack against it. See, that's just a weapon attack. It's not granting you any option to deal damage yet. It just says when you teleport in, you get a free attack. When you deal the damage, you could then choose to spend a point of mana to use a strike, and when you use a strike, you can choose whatever damage is assigned to the strike or any damage type that you've purchased. When you're looking at maneuvers, let's look at a maneuver. What's a good one? God, most of these things don't deal a lot of damage. Most of these things are like moving people around and changing conditions for people. But let's see. Maneuvers. Paralyze. Paralyzed. Yeah, geez, did I set this thing up so you literally never do damage with maneuvers? I think I did. Double checking. I think that's consistently true. It's been a while since I've combed through all the feats or all the maneuvers that we built. But yeah, shockwave, restraining hold, telekinetic lift, vanish, goad. Yeah, none of this stuff is actually direct damage. Rally. Okay, I gotta sit back for a second and really pat myself on the back of this, because like if you really want to up, flatten. Flatten deals damage. Choose a target creature within 30 feet. It takes 1 power die of mana force damage And if it fails its strength saving throw, it's knocked prone. So flatten, instead of force damage, if you had purchased, say, cold damage, you could have done cold damage instead. I might actually, what is that, its first rank? We'll leave it like that. I think this is like literally the only power in here, the only maneuver in here that actually deals damage. I'm kind of happy about that. I might actually get rid of that. Like, I might change that just so... I might get rid of the damage and just force it to become flattened automatically. Just so I can get rid of the damage. Just so I can consistently... Like, if you want to deal damage, you got to run up and you got to punch them. I really like that. Anyway, yeah. But yeah, so most of the examples that you're going to ever have, I mean, if you can find something, you know, like if you take flatten, great, go for it. But otherwise, it's pretty much going to be through strikes. Utility features then, I guess. Yes, very much so. Very, very much so. Like, bonus attack. You can make it attack with a bonus action. Mobility. You can dash, disengage, and dodge, just like kind of like a monk can. Yeah, swift resuscitation. You can stabilize a dying creature with a touch. All sorts of stuff. And you can read all of these. You have access to the playtest content like everyone else, so be welcome to chew through it if you're interested. But back on task. So yes. So but now we've defined how when you do damage, right? We're looking at damage types. So if you're using an elemental, if we're using the elemental paradigm, right? So that creatures and characters in your campaign are channeling air, earth, fire, and water as like a combat theme, like Avatar: The Last Airbender, for example. The different bender schools, like the Earth Nation and the Air Nomads and Water Tribes, etc. Fire Nation. They would have access to, like, these are the damage types that are devoted to the different aspects of the elemental paradigm. So the elemental paradigm has 4 aspects: air, earth, fire, and water. Here's the primary damage for each of them: lightning, acid, fire, cold, and here's their advanced form: thunder, force, radiant, and psychic damage. Psychic damage was a tough one. I am open to suggestions from people, but when I had polled about this a couple months ago, the general consensus was if any of all the elements, of all the elements, psychic seems to make the most sense with water because there's so many creatures that don't speak underwater. They use telepathy, so psychic damage seems to kind of just radiate with that. I thought air maybe would make sense, but thunder was too much of an obvious one. And acid damage is a holdover from 3rd edition. They always made acid kind of like, of the 4, acid didn't have a home, so they just kind of dropped it on Earth. We all admit that's kind of, well, it is what it is. So I kept with that Screwface oddity, but force is obviously a big gimme for Earth. Like, you want to take Earth because you can get force damage. That shit's just unbeatable. But then the other paradigm that we're working with is the 5-color magic paradigm from MTG. So you got white, blue, black, red, and green, right? So the primary colors for these are cold. Blue also has cold. Black has acid. Red is fire, and green is poison. But red, green, and blue could alternatively take lightning. Acid, the advanced forms for white is radiant. Psychic is blue. Black is necrotic. Fire, red is force, and green is thunder. So those are all pretty intuitive if you know MTG pretty well. That stuff all pretty lines up pretty well. The cold is the only outlier that's a little odd for MTG because, like, winter isn't a type of land. It isn't a color. It's a land variant. Like, you can have snow-covered swamps, snow-covered mountains, snow-covered forests, and that's a snow effect that modifies how you use mana. But that doesn't directly translate. That like overcomplicates things in a really weird way. So instead, we kind of eyeballed it. Like, say, look at Selesnya, for instance. Selesnya is white and green. You could realistically see them doing things with, like, winter magic. There you go. But, like, for example, Azorius is white and blue. So neither cold really, they both have cold, nor does lightning really make sense for Azorius, the Mind Police. But both radiant and psychic damage are incredibly on point for Azorius. So it's perfect that these two things would be here. That's exactly what Azorius is. Dimir is blue and black, and acid and cold isn't really on flavor, but psychic and necrotic damage super much is. So, but the problem is that you don't get the advanced features until 5th level if you're up here buying them, right? Well, the thing is that if you're going with the color magic paradigms because you're like, say, playing Ravnica, then if you're Azorius Synod, you're kind of siloed into only having white and blue, or you're siloed into having white and red. So what you can do, what I am going to write up, the next step on this is, if you're going to use a magic paradigm, and you then choose which aspect you're going, which aspect of that paradigm your character represents. Like, I'm going to be an airbender, or I'm going to be a firebender, or I'm going to be an earthbender, or I'm going to be a waterbender, whatever. You're going to pick one of those. You get a paradigm for free. And so when you create your character and you first gain martial powers, you choose an aspect of the paradigm that you want, and you get that one for free. And so that means that you get the primary and the advanced damage type of that paradigm for free. But that cuts off all the other energy types from you. So if I am a waterbender, I would only have access to cold and psychic damage, but I'd have it immediately. So I could always do that sort of damage. If I'm going to use Ravnica in the color magic campaign, then I could choose 2 colors. White, up to 2 colors. Like if I'm going to choose what's the name of the god? Hold on. Lazy me. I haven't added Theros in yet. Theros is by far my weakest subset. But there's 5 of the gods only have a single color. Like they're only a single color primary. So that would mean that they would be able to say the white, they'd have access to cold and radiant damage. But otherwise, if I chose Azorius, it'd be white and blue. I'd be able to gain white and all these for free, 1st level, but I wouldn't have access to acid, necrotic, fire, force, poison, and thunder damage, or lightning. I just wouldn't have access. To them. So what that means is that when we continue forward in the DM section, there's a conversation about, hey, you want to pay attention to what type of damages your team is purchasing for their aspects. So if they always have radiant damage and psychic damage available to them, you want to develop creatures that occasionally have resistance to radiant and psychic damage. Like a construct that can ignore psychic damage, for instance, or like a shadow creature that can eat light and so is resistant to radiant. You want to, and then we can introduce some ideas and concepts that go around that. So, Gunlord says, of the 3 elements would be bludgeon, but you don't make compromises, so it's just possible. But you didn't make compromises. I didn't. So that's the quick skinny of it. And then if you wanted to create your own paradigm, then like say light and shadow, for instance. Let's say we're gonna do a paradigm of light and shadow where all creatures and characters in the campaign are either in the light, they're in the darkness, or they walk the line between the two, for instance. Then we could establish what is the damage types that are associated with that paradigm. So I think I'm on Lost in the Sauce. Let's get back on base. Okay, so like if we went with light and shadow, light, I think fire and radiant would be obvious picks. Shadow, necrotic is kind of a gimme. Not sure. I don't know what would be a primary damage type for shadow magic. Nothing really obviously jumps out. I'd say either cold or poison. I guess neither one of those are great, honestly. Neither is necrotic really. But I think since it's since they'd be playing off of each other, I think it would be radiant and necrotic and cold and fire, because those are opposites. I think if you're doing a duality like that, I think the symmetry of the damage types is more on point than necessarily like shadow. I don't know. I think that's a debatable argument, but that's something that you could develop for yourself. Like, this is my paradigm. These are the two damage types I have access to, and I can't purchase other types. So, yeah, that's kind of the spiel. Cold and Psychic, I'd say, would be the best choice for darkness. Because it's being cold, dark, and scary. That's, you know what? I could be on board with that. I could definitely be on board with that. Yeah. What about like a paradigm of like body, mind, and spirit? Body. Let's see, what would be a basic for like body, mind, spirit? Like it's my pure physicality, my endurance, my prowess that allows me to succeed, versus my quick thinking allows me to succeed, versus my I don't know, purity or willpower that allows me to succeed. I could see like mind, maybe lightning and psychic for mind, and for spirit, like fire and I keep pairing fire and for body. Definitely, I would say force. I'm not sure. Let's click on that. I'm not sure about. Physicality. I don't know. I'm just musing stuff, because it is. I've just hit the 1 hour mark, so I need to bail out of here pretty quickly. But that's the idea. If you choose a paradigm, if you're using power paradigms, you choose one, or if the campaign allows, like Strixhaven, for instance, has two. There's 5 colors, so you get to pick 2. 4 elements, you get to pick 1. So, but. 3 would pick 1, 2 you'd pick 1. Anyway, that's the idea. That's where we're at right now. So I'll probably end up taking some time when I'm doing some brain dead TV time with the gal later on. I'll probably have my tablet out, and I'll probably try to hammer out the text to how to word this better. But we already know how magic paradigms work. The problem I've been having is how to mechanically represent those paradigms, and then of course the kicker is, if I've got 25 mana, I then devote the mana to one, like the like if like I'm just an airbender, then all my mana is going to be air mana. So I would then obviously it would all automatically be used for the the damage types that I use. But if I'm using, like, say if I'm Rakdos, then I would divide up my mana between red and black, and whenever I use red mana, I could use the blah 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 red black. Whenever I use red mana, I could either use fire or force damage. Whenever I use black mana, I could use acid or necrotic damage. Both black and red mana can all be used for all of the powers. Like, powers aren't siloed behind different types, but if I'm going to give you a damage type for free, I have to make you pay for it somehow. I'm going to reduce the amount of damage that you get, and if you run out of the corresponding color type, you lose access to dealing that additional damage type. It would just default. Everything always defaults back to weapon damage. So, like, if I'm going to throw 4 power dice worth of damage on top of a sword strike, I could always opt to just deal extra slashing damage, if that's optimal for me. Like, if it's a magic sword, doing magic slashing damage is probably going to be optimal in a lot of circumstances. Then great, I'm just going to pump it into magical sword damage. It's damage with a power is always considered magic. So these strikes are always considered magic. So I just channel it into slashing, it becomes magical slashing damage. It's a bludgeoning weapon. I channel the damage, it becomes magical bludgeoning damage. But I could always instead decide to use this damage instead. And all the damage is converted to whatever damage type I have. So it's not like I'm doing some bludgeoning damage and then fire damage. It's all fire damage. So anyway, that's where we're at for today. And I think that's going to be a much easier way for people to engage with the idea of paradigms in general. So I'm going to split the 4-element paradigm separately, because if you're using a paradigm, you get a free element. So there you go. You got air. Now you can use those air damage types for free. In that paradigm, I think we'd be okay starting off with you, since you only have one, you get it for free. I think in that circumstance, you get them both for free, but for the elemental form, the advanced form is the weird one compared to the basic elements that we're using. So I think in that instance, we would build it differently. Like this is like first level you get, and then later you also at 5th level you get Thunder for free. Maybe we'll do that. Still noodling with it, but this is where we're at right now. So, that's my lunch. So I'm gonna bell. We do this every week. I've been sitting on this paradigm thing for a while because it's not as easy as just taking a spell list. What I didn't want to do is go up here and say this maneuver is a red power or a red power. This one is a fire power or whatever. I wanted to have all just generic powers, just like you would expect anything else in the player's handbook. But I also wanted to be able to use this with the spell point variant rules that I have. So if you're playing a Rakdos Sorcerer Paladin, then that red-black mana means something, not only to the spells that you're casting, but also for the powers that you're channeling. So that's what I've been noodling with all this time, because I want to bundle this with my spell point variant rules, because that thing's pushing gold. So if I bundle this in with it, that might be the only jump starter I need to be able to kick the color mana, the original spell point variant rules into gold status before the end of 2023. So that's why I wanted to make sure this thing curved out with that, because I want to bundle these things together to make sure they're cheap for people that already buy my crap. I just want to make sure they have this at a discount by bundling it. Anyway, so yeah, we're noodling. We're still noodling with it, but I like the purchase option for the different damage types. That just feels right. And because you only get 15 of them, these things are expensive. Although I could totally see people buying force and stuff like that. But I'm okay with that. I mean, Paladin gets Radiant for free already anyway. So, I mean, you got a freebie, kid. Good job. There's not much big difference between Radiant or a Paladin doing psychic damage, or it's all this. Once you get Radiant damage for free, it's kind of all the same. So, la-di-da. Anyway, I'm rambling hard, which probably means I need to go. So I would normally be on Monday night doing Eberron cartography, but I had 102 fever all weekend, and my girl couldn't touch me. So I'm going to spend some time off camera, but I will uncharacteristically be on Wednesday night doing Eberron cartography instead. So I will see you guys on the other side. I appreciate folks showing up and taking an interest. Like and subscribe. I've been doing this. This is my 37th episode. Obviously, I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. And when this is all done, you'll see all this stuff converted after edits into the PDF. We're going to do all the layouts on stream. Once we have it all laid out, charted, do all the page dressing, we'll then export all the pages that have space open into PDFs, drop them into Photoshop, paint directly on the page, and reload it into the Word document program that I use to do all my layouts. And once that's all done, we'll stitch it up into a PDF and we'll drop it onto the DMsGuild, and then y'all can take a look at it. So, yeah. So I'll see you guys on the other side. I really appreciate you being here. Thanks a lot.